You are exhausted, not just the fleeting physical tiredness that a good night's sleep can cure, but a heavy, echoing exhaustion deep within your bones. You have done the inner work, you have held onto the vision for so long, and you have remained fiercely patient. Yet just when victory seemed inches away, just when you thought you were finally about to cross the finish line, everything abruptly stopped. Doors slammed shut, opportunities vanished. An eerie, heavy silence fell over your life. It feels as if everything you touched suddenly broke down, and you are left stranded in an inexplicable void where absolutely nothing moves forward. It is so easy, in this dark and suffocating quiet, to believe that you have been completely abandoned. But what if I told you that this agonizing stillness is not a punishment? What if this sudden stagnation is actually the definitive proof that your massive breakthrough is already here? You are currently walking through the universe's final test before a total transformation of your reality, and misunderstanding this chaotic silence, ignoring what it truly means, is a fatal mistake. Close your eyes and visualize the ocean right before a colossal tsunami strikes the shore. The water does not just gently rise and roll in. First, it violently recedes. It pulls back with terrifying, unnatural force, sucking away all the water and exposing the bare, hidden ocean floor. To the untrained eye, it looks like a sudden drought. It looks like the sea is dying and shrinking away into nothing. But those who understand the deep ancient currents know exactly what that terrifying withdrawal means. The ocean has not failed. It is actively gathering unimaginable, crushing momentum to deliver a wave of unprecedented scale. You are not cursed. You are not unlucky, and your life is not falling apart by accident. This profound exhaustion and the sudden collapse of everything around you are the symptoms of a highly calculated cosmic event. The universe is intentionally draining the familiar air from your reality, creating a massive, terrifying vacuum of pressure. It is pulling back violently to clear the space, solely to drag in the greatest transformation of your existence. You are standing on the exposed sand, feeling the frightening silence of the receding tide, assuming the water is gone forever. But you must hold your ground and refuse to panic. Because to truly survive the monumental wave that is about to break, you must first comprehend the invisible, crushing forces twisting just beneath the surface of this illusion, demanding to be released. You feel as though you are pushing against a massive, unyielding stone wall. Every step forward requires an impossible amount of force, and lately, the resistance has become so agonizing that it feels like the universe is actively fighting against you. It is entirely understandable that you feel terrified and exhausted by this. When everything around you locks up and begins to violently shake, the natural human reaction is to assume you have made a terrible mistake. But to understand what is truly happening to your life right now, we must temporarily step away from emotion and look at the cold, unforgiving laws of physics. In the realm of matter and energy, transformation is never a peaceful event. Think of a heavy pot of water placed over a burning flame. For a long time, the temperature rises, but the surface remains relatively calm. You cannot see the profound energetic changes happening beneath. But right at the very edge of transformation, just a fraction of a degree before the water shifts from a heavy liquid into an expansive, weightless vapor, the environment becomes violently chaotic. The molecules collide and vibrate with an aggressive, terrifying intensity. To an observer who does not understand thermodynamics, this violent boiling looks like pure destruction. It looks like things are falling apart. But it is not destruction at all. That extreme agitation is the exact mechanical requirement for a phase shift. The resistance you are feeling right now is your own invisible boiling point. The friction is not a punishment. It is the mathematical certainty that you have reached the absolute limit of your current state of matter. You have been accelerating toward a completely new dimension of life. But there is a fundamental rule of energy you must memorize if you are going to survive this phase. Structural tension always reaches its maximum peak right before a breakthrough. Consider an aircraft flying faster and faster, approaching the speed of sound. As it nears that invisible barrier, the air resistance does not gently fade away. Instead, it compresses. The air molecules pile up directly in front of the aircraft, creating a brutal, literal wall of atmospheric pressure. The entire machine begins to violently shake. The drag coefficient spikes so dramatically that it feels as though the structure will be ripped apart. If a pilot does not understand the mechanics of this tension, they will panic. They will pull back on the throttle in sheer terror and abort the flight just milliseconds before breaking through to the smooth, silent reality on the other side. This crushing, terrifying pressure you are currently surviving is the universe's final test. The heavy weight holding you down, the inexplicable delays, the sensation that everything is vibrating uncontrollably and about to break. This is just the compressed energy of your old reality piled up in front of you. You are hitting the sound barrier of your own existence. We have been deeply conditioned to believe that when we are on the right path, everything flows easily without any resistance. You must let go of this comforting illusion. The universe does not operate on convenience. It operates on the undeniable exchange of energy. You cannot forge a completely new reality in a vacuum of comfort. The situations, the old energetic bonds, and the heavy structures of your past life must be subjected to staggering amounts of friction so they can finally shatter. The universe is applying this agonizing structural tension on purpose. It is using this extreme pressure to break the molecular bonds of your old life, forcing you to achieve a quantum leap into a higher state of expression. What you perceive as a relentless struggle is just kinetic energy reaching its absolute peak. The pressure is not here to crush your spirit. It is the exact physical fuel required to launch you through the barrier. It is a cold, calculated, and magnificent mechanical necessity. Once you realize that this terrifying turbulence is merely the physics of your own expansion, the panic fades into a quiet, unstoppable certainty. Yet, while these colossal forces are violently reshaping the energetic space around you, a completely different kind of demolition is quietly occurring inside your own physical vessel, consuming you from the inside out in ways you cannot even see. As the colossal forces of energetic pressure bear down upon you, a deeply intimate and profoundly physical phenomenon is taking place right beneath your skin. You have likely noticed an inescapable, crushing fatigue that no amount of sleep seems to cure. Your limbs feel like heavy iron. Your thoughts, once sharp and quick, are now frequently submerged in a thick, disorienting mental fog. You might sit on the edge of your bed, staring blankly at the wall, feeling a heavy guilt washing over you. You whisper to yourself that you are being lazy, that you are losing your drive, or perhaps that you are sinking into a deep, paralyzing depression. You feel as though your physical vessel is failing you at the exact moment you need its strength the most. I need you to listen to me very carefully and banish that heavy guilt immediately. Your physical body is not failing. It is, in fact, executing the most magnificent and exhausting biological labor of your entire life. To truly comprehend the universe's final test, you must understand that this transformation is not merely an abstract spiritual concept. It is violently biological. Inside the dark, silent cathedral of your skull, your brain is currently functioning like a massive, active demolition zone. For decades, your nervous system has operated on heavily worn neurological highways built on fear, survival, scarcity, and self-doubt. Those old pathways were deeply hardwired into your flesh, firing automatically every single day. But the new reality you have summoned requires a completely different biological architecture to sustain it. You cannot erect the towering, magnificent skyscraper of your new identity on the fragile, rotting foundations of your past. Therefore, your biology has initiated a ruthless process of neural pruning. It is a controlled internal demolition. Your central nervous system is actively physically dismantling the microscopic bridges that used to link your identity to familiar suffering. It is deliberately starving the old toxic synapses and burning away the cellular roads of your former self to make room for the new. This is not a metaphor, it is an intense anatomical reality. The human brain is an absolute furnace, consuming a massive percentage of your daily caloric energy just to maintain normal operations. But right now it is performing emergency structural surgery on itself. It is quietly siphoning vital energy from your muscles, from your physical stamina, and from your conscious focus, redirecting all available power to this subconscious rewiring. This monumental redirection of physical energy is the exact biological reason why you feel so profoundly drained. The confusion, the lack of focus, and the memory lapses you're experiencing are simply the dust settling from the internal collapse of the walls that used to limit you. It is time to absolve your body of any blame. When you find yourself lying perfectly still, entirely devoid of motivation, society will tell you that you are being entirely unproductive and stagnant. But the profound truth is, in those moments of forced physical stillness, you are doing the heaviest lifting you have ever done. Your biology is physically rearranging billions of neurons, stretching and tearing microscopic fibers to physically match the frequency of the reality you are about to step into. You must learn to honor this sacred exhaustion. Be deeply proud of the invisible, monumental work your cells are performing in the dark. Your physical vessel is literally mutating to hold the immense weight of your impending evolution. Yet, while this miraculous biological demolition is consuming you from the inside out, the space around you is responding to this shift, forcing your eyes to witness a terrifying optical illusion just beyond the boundaries of your own skin. As you stand amidst the wreckage of what you thought was your destined path, there is a very specific, sharp pain that demands our immediate attention. It is the stinging, breathless sensation of a heavy door being slammed violently in your face. Recently, you may have experienced sudden endings, harsh and inexplicable rejections, or the abrupt dissolution of connections and timelines you desperately wanted to hold on to. You stand there in the silence that follows, looking at these cold, impassable walls rising up around you, and a deep, sinking despair settles heavily in your chest. The natural reaction is to interpret these locked doors as undeniable proof of your own failure. You begin to believe that the universe is aggressively punishing you, turning its back and locking you out of the expansive life you so deeply desire. But I need you to look much closer at the profound geometry of your current suffering, because you are falling victim to a masterful optical illusion. What you perceive as an insurmountable brick wall designed to keep you out is, in absolute reality, a directional crushing funnel designed to keep you fiercely on track. You are navigating the universe's final test, and one of its most misunderstood mechanisms is the act of absolute, unyielding containment. When your energetic frequency demands a massive evolutionary leap, the universe does not merely offer gentle suggestions or subtle nudges. It violently and decisively intervenes. It actively hunts down every single incorrect path, every mediocre timeline, and every misaligned scenario you might be tempted to settle for, and it barricades them with brutal, breathtaking efficiency. Imagine walking down a vast, dimly lit hallway, filled with hundreds of open doorways. Left to your own human exhaustion, you would inevitably wander into rooms that are far too small for the colossal energy you now carry. You would compromise your vision. You would gladly accept less just to feel a fleeting sense of security and relief. Knowing this, the infinite intelligence of reality begins slamming those doors shut just milliseconds before you can step across the threshold. Bang! A painful rejection. Bang! A sudden, jarring separation. Bang! An opportunity completely vanishes into thin air. It feels like a vicious personal attack, a relentless series of crushing defeats that leave you gasping for air. But you must understand this right now. This extreme friction is not rejection. It is directive protection. You are not being denied your destiny. You are being forcefully corralled into it. The universe is aggressively compressing your trajectory, narrowing your options until you are absolutely cornered. It is pushing you relentlessly down the corridor, ruthlessly denying you every possible escape route back into the comfort of mediocrity, until you are left standing squarely in front of the one and only door that actually matters. The ultimate door that leads to your supreme expansion. You must radically resignify the heavy pain of your recent losses in this very moment. Let the shock of this realization wash over you like electricity. Those sudden endings were not tragedies. They were emergency rescues brilliantly disguised as heartbreak. If the universe had not intervened with such terrifying harshness, you would have successfully built a permanent home inside a reality that was meant only to be a temporary waiting room. Take a deep, slow breath and let the heavy sting of those closed doors completely dissolve. Feel the magnificent relief of this truth. You are not trapped by failure. You are securely fenced in by a cosmic force that refuses to let you settle for a mere fraction of your true power. Every agonizing no you have received was just the walls of the funnel narrowing, pushing you exactly where you are meant to stand. You are completely safe within this corridor of closed doors. Yet as this external funnel tightens, violently pushing you toward your ultimate threshold, a terrifying and ancient false alarm is about to be triggered deep within the shadows of your own mind. Right now, in the very middle of this intense cosmic compression, you might be experiencing a sensation that carries a heavy, unspoken shame. It is the sudden, overwhelming urge to simply give up. You might wake up with your heart violently racing, a cold sweat on your skin, and a desperate, undeniable instinct to run back to the very life you fought so incredibly hard to escape. You look at the daunting, silent path ahead, and a heavy voice inside your head screams that it is all too hard, that you have made a terrible mistake, and that you should just go back to the familiar pain because, at the very least, you knew how to survive it. This urge makes you feel deeply defeated. It makes you question your own character, forcing you to wonder if you are secretly broken or if you are deliberately self-sabotaging your own destiny. I want to lean in close and tell you this with absolute, unwavering certainty. You are not weak, and this terrifying urge to retreat has absolutely nothing to do with who you are. What you're experiencing right now is simply a mechanical, primitive defense system aggressively firing off. To understand this, you must look at the oldest, most foundational part of your physical vessel, the reptilian brain. This ancient piece of biological machinery does not care about your happiness, your dreams, or your majestic spiritual expansion. Its only programmed function is to keep you alive. And in the cold, rigid, unthinking code of this primitive system, there is one absolute rule. The familiar is safe, and the unknown is a deadly threat. When you start stepping into a totally new reality, when you get dangerously close to profound freedom and success, this ancient part of your brain scans the environment and detects a massive anomaly. It does not recognize the frequency of your new life. Because this impending reality is completely unfamiliar, the reptilian brain instantly classifies your breakthrough as a lethal, foreign invader. It treats your ultimate success exactly like a biological virus. Immediately, this primitive antivirus program triggers a massive, systemic false alarm. It floods your bloodstream with stress hormones. It tightens your chest, makes your breathing shallow, and generates a paralyzing, heavy sense of impending doom. This biological panic is a crucial component of the universe's final test. As the universe pushes you into the magnificent unknown, your own biology attempts to violently drag you back into the cage of predictability. Your nervous system is literally ordering a retreat, screaming at you to return to the misery, the limitation and the smallness of your past, simply because the parameters of that old suffering are mathematically predictable. Your ancient biology would rather you be miserable and certain than be magnificent and uncertain. This is the exact moment where you must separate your eternal consciousness from your biological machinery. When the panic sets in, when the urge to self-sabotage echoes in your ears, you must not judge yourself or feel ashamed. You must observe this intense physical reaction with a cold, detached, and sovereign courage. Recognize the pounding heart and the spiraling thoughts for what they truly are. A malfunctioning biological siren meant to keep you small. You must stand completely still in the face of this primitive storm and absolutely refuse to negotiate with a system that is terrified of your evolution. You simply have to outlast the physical panic without yielding an inch to its demands. Yet, as you hold your ground and wait for these internal alarms to finally exhaust themselves, you will soon discover that the universe has one more illusion waiting to test your resolve. It is about to use the immediate problems and the people currently standing right in front of you as a holographic canvas, projecting a very specific, ancient ghost directly into your line of sight. You look around at the immediate problems confronting you right now, and a heavy, suffocating weight settles deep within your stomach. Perhaps it is a sudden financial crisis threatening to swallow your sense of security, a bitter betrayal by someone you trusted entirely, or a mountain of conflicts that seem completely unfair and unprovoked. Your chest tightens with a familiar, burning sense of injustice. You feel targeted by the world, exhausted from constantly defending yourself against these relentless external enemies. It is perfectly natural to point your finger at these outside forces, to cry out in deep frustration, and to ask why you must be punished when you have tried so hard to do everything right. But I must ask you to step much closer and look into the absolute, terrifying truth of this very moment. The profound secret of the universe's final test is that your grand enemies are entirely an illusion. There is no external threat. Everything you are violently fighting out there is fundamentally empty. Imagine standing alone inside an immense, perfectly dark room constructed entirely of holographic mirrors. Suddenly, terrifying figures begin stepping out of the glass, surrounding you. They wear the highly realistic faces of your current problems. A cold partner, an impossible debt, a failing career. They scream at you, they intimidate you, and they make you feel incredibly small, helpless, and paralyzed. But if you stop trembling, take a deep breath, and walk right up to these terrifying phantoms, you will realize they have absolutely no substance. The universe is merely using the immediate situations in your daily life as empty costumes. It is dressing up current events to perfectly project the deeply buried, unresolved shadows of your own past. That overwhelming, paralyzing fear of losing everything is not actually about the money. It is the ancient, unhealed wound of unworthiness you have carried since childhood, finally demanding to be seen. That agonizing rejection from a person you loved is not about them at all. It is the lingering ghost of your own self-abandonment, projected perfectly onto the three-dimensional screen of your current reality. You have been so completely exhausted because you have spent your entire life aggressively punching the mirrors, desperately trying to defeat the reflection instead of healing the source. I want you to pause right here for just a moment. If you can feel the gravity of this revelation settling into your bones, if this truth is finally dissolving the heavy, suffocating armor of your victimhood, I invite you to stay connected with us here. Subscribe to this space so we can continue navigating this vast reality together. And to truly anchor this realization in your physical reality right now, write these exact words in the space below. I stop fighting the hologram. Let that simple sentence be a profound living declaration that you are finally taking your sovereign power back from the illusions. The universe deliberately cornered you with these specific crises because it knew this was the absolute only way to force your ultimate battle. It had to manifest your deepest insecurities into terrifying shapes right in front of you, forcing you to stop running away from yourself. The test is not to figure out a clever strategy to defeat the external obstacle. The supreme requirement of this moment is for you to stop kneeling to your own internal ghosts. You must stand incredibly tall in the center of the mirror room, look directly into the eyes of the terrifying projection, and recognize that it is only your own forgotten pain asking to be integrated and released. When you stop fearing the shadow, the hologram instantly collapses. But to maintain this newfound sovereignty, we must shine a harsh, blinding light on a very uncomfortable truth about why you have kept returning to this mirror room time and time again, a truth that resides not in your mind, but deeply embedded in your own physical biology. There is a deeply uncomfortable truth that we must confront right now, a reality so raw and confronting that your rational mind will instantly attempt to deny it. You have been looking up at the sky, exhausted, constantly asking why this transition has to be so agonizingly difficult. You ask why the pressure cannot just be gentle, why the sweeping changes cannot come softly into your life like a quiet morning breeze. To understand the sheer violence of this cosmic intervention, we have to look past your conscious desires and examine the cold, uncompromising mechanics of your own anatomy. The truth is, while your conscious mind is desperately crying out for absolute freedom and serene peace, your physical biology is secretly, heavily addicted to your suffering. For years, your physical vessel has been living inside a perpetual cycle of deep tension, relentless struggle, and survival. Every time you worried about your future, every time you fought to keep your head above water, and every time you engaged in the familiar drama of your existence, your nervous system released a highly specific, intoxicating cocktail of stress hormones. Over decades of repetition, your cells became entirely dependent on that exact chemical signature. This is the unforgiving reality of biological homeostasis. You actually became chemically addicted to the familiar rush of the chaos. You became unconsciously dependent on the tragedy the friction, and the magnetic pull of your own limitation, simply because it was the only emotional food your body knew how to process. When true peace finally attempts to enter your life, your chemically addicted body vehemently rejects it as an unbearable withdrawal symptom. It aggressively craves the heavy, familiar weight of the struggle. This hidden biological craving is exactly why a gentle, polite nudge from the cosmic intelligence would never have worked for you. If reality simply gave you a soft, quiet suggestion to change your life, your deep chemical addiction to the familiar pain would have easily, effortlessly pulled you right back down into the exact same tragic cycles. To truly understand the colossal forces moving through you right now, you must visualize a massive, heavy rocket sitting on a launch pad. When that colossal machine attempts to leave the Earth, it does not just gently float upward into the sky. It requires a terrifying, deafening explosion of raw, sustained power. The rocket must burn an astronomical percentage of its own fuel in mere minutes, violently shaking and vibrating as it fights against the crushing, invisible grip of the planet's gravity. The most dangerous, destructive, and exhausting part of the entire journey to the stars is not navigating the vastness of the cosmos. It is simply breaking free from the orbit that wants to keep it permanently grounded. This is the inescapable law of escape velocity. You are currently experiencing the violent thrust of your own escape velocity. The immense, almost unbearable pressure you are feeling in your chest, in your environment, and in your daily existence is the universe's final test. It is perfectly designed to permanently shatter the magnetic pull of your secret addiction to the past. The universe is intentionally forcing this extreme, explosive pressure onto your reality, because it is the exact, calculated, mathematical force required to blast you out of the gravitational pull of your own chemical loops. The intervention had to be this intense, this disruptive, and this uncompromising. If the pressure were even a fraction lighter, the heavy, comforting gravity of your familiar suffering would have successfully dragged you back down into the lower frequencies, trapping you in a cycle of repetition forever. You must allow this uncomfortable clarity to wash over you, burning away the illusion of victimhood. You are not being punished by this pressure, you are being forcefully launched by it. The violent shaking of your current life is merely the friction of breaking your emotional orbit. You must stand incredibly firm, understanding that the chaotic pressure around you is the absolute only cure to the deeply rooted addiction inside you. But as you finally breach the upper atmosphere of this heavy reality, as the blinding speed of your ascent begins to stretch the very limits of your structure, something profound and inevitable must happen to the heavy, hardened armor that originally carried you through the fire. There is a profound, echoing isolation that arrives at the very peak of this cosmic pressure, a loneliness so absolute and heavy that it feels as though you are the last breathing entity on this earth. You might wake up in the middle of the night with a tight, unyielding grip in your chest, a constant heavy lump in your throat, and a hollow ache echoing beneath your ribs. You look in the mirror, and the tired eyes staring back at you belong to a stranger. The environments, the conversations, and the routines that used to bring you a sense of comforting safety now feel like heavy, suffocating wool wrapped around you in the middle of a burning summer. You are currently experiencing the most agonizing, intensely misunderstood phase of your entire existence, the irreversible, catastrophic collapse of your own identity. It feels exactly as if you are losing absolutely everything. Your old relationships, your previous ambitions, your deepest attachments, they are all slipping through your fingers like dry ash, and no matter how desperately you clench your fists, you cannot hold on to them. But I need you to listen to the deafening sound of this destruction very closely. What you are hearing is not the sound of your life being ruined. It is the violent, necessary tearing of a shell that has become fatally too small for the sheer magnitude of your spirit. Imagine a magnificent creature of the deep that has absorbed so much raw energy, so much relentless evolutionary power that its physical armor can no longer contain its mass. The very shell that once kept it safe from the harshness of the ocean is now slowly, painfully crushing it from the outside in. If that heavy carapace does not violently shatter, the creature will literally suffocate under the weight of its own magnificent growth. You are suffocating inside the tight, restrictive boundaries of who you used to be. The version of you that accepted emotional crumbs, the version that constantly shrank to make others feel comfortable, the version that desperately needed external validation just to feel a fleeting sense of worth. That version of you is currently dying, and it absolutely must die. There is an ancient, unyielding universal law that dictates you can never pour new, volatile, blazing cosmic wine into old, fragile, rotting wineskins. If you try to hold your massive new reality inside the tiny psychological vessel of your past, the vessel will violently burst, spilling the sacred energy into the dirt. The universe is not stripping things away from you to leave you broken and empty. It is aggressively shattering your old vessel because the reality you have summoned would completely obliterate the fragile identity you have been stubbornly clinging to. This excruciating internal implosion is the universe's final test. You are being intimately asked to endure the terrifying bodily sensation of your ego disintegrating into dust. Every single time you cry over a lost connection, every time you mourn the predictable life you thought you were supposed to have, you are feeling the literal agonizing tear of your old psychological skin ripping apart so the immense new you can finally take a full breath of air. I want you to stop fighting this sacred death. Lower your heavy weapons, drop to your knees if the weight is too much, and allow the crushing grief of this transition to completely wash over you, but you must radically change the frequency of your tears. Do not weep like a helpless victim who has been brutally robbed by the world. Weep with the profound, solemn reverence of a sovereign king or queen, witnessing their own magnificent burial. You must honor the old you that survived the unimaginable trauma of your past. Thank that fractured version of yourself for carrying you through the darkest nights, and then gently, mercilessly let it burn away in the fire of your expansion. Stand incredibly tall in the smoking, quiet ruins of your old personality, completely naked to the cosmos, and feel the absolute staggering relief that you never have to pretend to be that small ever again. You have survived the implosion, and the heavy old skin has finally fallen to the floor. Yet as you stand completely raw, pure, and reborn in this vast, quiet clearing, you will quickly notice a terrifying absence, a dangerous, silent void surrounding you, where the outside world seems to have completely paused, leaving you stranded in a breathtaking emptiness. You are now standing in the most dangerous and mentally agonizing phase of this entire transition. The heavy armor has fallen away, and you have fundamentally changed on the inside. You can feel the new frequency vibrating in your very bones. Yet, when you open your eyes and look at your external reality, absolutely nothing has moved. The physical circumstances look exactly the same. The empty spaces in your life remain entirely hollow. You are trapped in a terrifying silent gap, a profound cosmic purgatory where your internal world has already shifted into a massive new dimension, but the three-dimensional world around you stubbornly refuses to reflect it. This silence can feel like the ultimate betrayal. It feels as though reality is mocking your transformation, leaving you stranded in a breathless void where it seems like your breakthrough is never going to materialize. But you must understand the profound, majestic physics of this delay. This silence is not a rejection. It is an absolute mechanical necessity for your survival. Imagine a deep-sea diver who has spent a tremendous amount of time at the crushing, lightless bottom of the ocean. When it is finally time for them to return to the sunlit surface, they cannot simply shoot straight upward. If they were to violently breach the surface without pausing, the sudden and drastic change in atmospheric pressure would cause the nitrogen in their bloodstream to physically boil. The very act of rising too fast would instantly destroy their physical vessel. To survive the immense shift in environments, the diver must sit inside a decompression chamber, a cold, steel-enclosed space suspended in the dark water. They must sit there in total isolation, doing absolutely nothing, simply waiting for their internal biology to equalize with the massive pressure changes of the new atmosphere. The agonizing gap you are currently experiencing is exactly that. You are sitting inside the cosmic decompression chamber. The universe has deliberately suspended you in this empty space, blocking the immediate materialization of your new life, purely to stabilize your internal pressure. This is a crucial, undeniable phase of the universe's final test. If the towering, colossal reality you have summoned were to suddenly crash into your physical existence right now, The sheer weight, velocity, and energetic magnitude of that manifestation would completely crush your newly formed raw identity. You are still acclimating to the staggering frequency of your own expansion. The universe is holding the doors of reality firmly shut to protect you from the crushing velocity of your own answered call. You must allow this majestic, protective truth to completely extinguish the heavy despair of waiting. The delay is not a malfunction of reality. It is a highly intelligent, mathematical shielding. The cosmic intelligence is intricately calibrating the atmosphere of your new timeline, ensuring that when the heavy steel doors of this chamber finally hiss open, you can step out and breathe the air of your vast new life without being obliterated by its power. You must learn to revere this silence, venerate this empty space. It is the ultimate undeniable proof that what is coming is so incredibly massive that reality itself requires time to adjust the gravitational pull around it, just so you can safely hold it in your hands. Let the cold, majestic truth of this stabilization anchor your spirit. Yet as you sit safely within this dark, protective chamber, there is a very specific human instinct that will awaken in the shadows. An instinct that will desperately try to interfere with the delicate, invisible calibration happening just outside the walls. As you sit suspended in this silent stabilization, an agonizing and familiar sensation begins to burn in the pit of your stomach. It is the acidic, restless itch of human anxiety demanding immediate validation. You feel a tight, suffocating grip in your chest, compelling you to constantly check your reality for tangible proof. You obsessively scan your environment, you rapidly calculate timelines in your head, and you desperately search for a tiny, visible scrap of evidence that your transformation is actually working. You have been deeply conditioned by society to believe that this relentless vigilance is a form of responsibility. You tell yourself that if you just keep a close eye on the process, you can prevent it from failing. But I must tell you the absolute, unvarnished truth right now. This desperate compulsion for control is a deadly venom, and it is the exact poison that destroys miracles just moments before they can ever reach the surface. To truly master the universe's final test, you must completely revolutionize your understanding of how reality is cultivated. Imagine holding a rare, magnificent seed in the palm of your hand, the highly concentrated blueprint of your entire new life. With great reverence, you plant it deep into the heavy, dark earth. For the first few days, you feel a sense of peace. But soon, because the surface of the soil remains completely flat, barren, and stubbornly unchanged, a heavy panic begins to set in. You cannot handle the mystery of the dark dirt. Driven by the agonizing need for proof, you drop to your knees every single morning, desperately digging your bare hands into the cold soil. You ruthlessly tear away the protective earth just to see if the fragile, microscopic roots have started to stretch out. And in that exact moment of anxious micromanagement, the harsh light and dry air violently hit those delicate fibers, instantly killing the very life you were so desperate to grow. Your constant need for daily validation is exactly like digging up the seed. Every time you panic because you do not see physical results yet, every time you try to force a timeline or aggressively manipulate an outcome, you are violently ripping the roots of your new reality out of the quantum soil. We have been taught a very weak, fragile, and mystical definition of the word faith. You must discard that definition immediately. True cosmic faith is not a passive, floaty hope. It is a cold, blind, and highly pragmatic operational discipline. It is a fierce, aggressive peace. It is the heroic, unyielding stubbornness required to plant the seed, turn your back on the field, and categorically refuse to dig it back up, no matter how much your physical anxiety screams at you to check on it. You must deeply understand that the lack of visible evidence in your life right now is not a malfunction. That darkness, that total absence of proof, is the indispensable, fertile incubator required for your massive breakthrough. The unseen geometry of your new life can only weave itself together in the absolute dark, free from the destructive radiation of your human doubt. You have to uncurl your tightly clenched fingers and permanently drop the illusion that the universe needs your anxious supervision to do its job. You must trade the exhausting mania of demanding daily receipts from reality for the majestic, silent power of the sovereign who lets the invisible forces operate flawlessly in the shadows. You must drop the wheel, But this aggressive discipline of letting go is not just about finding inner peace, it is a matter of absolute mechanical survival. Because if you ignore this warning and allow your desperate need for control to remain unchecked, your frantic search for evidence will inadvertently trigger an ancient fatal warning system hidden deep within the dashboard of your own mind. Deep within this heavy, silent stabilization chamber, there is a highly seductive, dangerous temptation that will begin to whisper in your ear. It is the hypnotic, paralyzing urge to completely check out. Your mind is so profoundly exhausted from the relentless tension that you simply want to close your eyes, numb your awareness, and let whatever happens, happen. You might find yourself wanting to escape into mindless distractions, retreating into a state of apathetic surrender, hoping that the universe will just figure everything out for you while you sleep. This is exactly where the absolute gravity of our central warning comes into play. Do not ignore this moment. If you fall asleep at the wheel of your own consciousness right now, you do not just stay in a neutral, safe holding pattern. By abandoning your deliberate awareness, you instantly hand the executive control of your reality over to the blind, mechanical autopilot of your subconscious mind. When the subconscious is left completely unobserved, it does not invent new, magnificent realities. It strictly and ruthlessly runs the oldest, most deeply ingrained lines of corrupted code it can find in its archives. It will instantly reboot the fatal, repetitive programs of scarcity, rejection, and victimhood that you have spent your entire life trying to delete. People who fall asleep during this critical phase watch their lives violently loop back into the same familiar tragedies, and they tragically call it their unchangeable destiny. But it is not destiny. It is simply the devastating consequence of a sovereign creator abandoning the cockpit while the engines are still fully engaged. Imagine you are sitting in the captain's chair of a massive, incredibly powerful aircraft flying through the dark. Suddenly, a blinding red alert begins to flash violently on the central dashboard. The klaxons are screaming, and the cabin is bathed in an intense, urgent light. The natural instinct of a helpless passenger is to curl up, cover their eyes, and brace for a catastrophic impact, hoping someone else will somehow fix the problem. But the universe is not treating you like a passenger anymore. That violently flashing red light is the universe's final test. The alarm is not sounding so that you panic, jump out of the seat, and desperately try to keep the massive airplane in the sky through sheer physical force or frantic human effort. It is flashing for one specific surgical reason, to demand that you throw the piercing, blinding light of your absolute consciousness directly onto the malfunctioning system. You must open your eyes incredibly wide. You must look directly at the corrupted code of your own fear as it tries to execute its old commands. The supreme, undeniable secret of reality creation is that the simple act of observing a subconscious program in real time instantly strips it of its power. You do not have to fight it. You do not have to exhaust yourself wrestling with the shadows of your own mind. You simply have to catch it in the act. By projecting the fierce, unwavering beam of your pure awareness onto the false alarm, you instantly disarm the spell. You return to the executive throne of your own life, not through grueling physical labor, but through the majestic, commanding power of absolute presence. You become the sovereign operator holding the invincible weapon of pure consciousness, effortlessly deleting the virus just by watching it dissolve in the blinding light of your attention. Yet as you sit powerfully in this captain's chair, finally gripping the controls with absolute authority, you might look down at your own hands and feel a sudden, devastating wave of grief over the profound weariness deeply etched into your skin. You have arrived at the ultimate quiet. The heavy structures that kept you small have completely vanished. At the absolute center of this majestic silence, you stand untouched. The storm stripped away the mask of the ego, but it could never reach the brilliant, pure frequency glowing at the very core of your mind and chest. That luminous energy is who you truly are. You are the eternal, silent observer, standing calmly in the eye of the hurricane. The universe's final test was never about struggling. It was a magnificent illusion designed solely to remind you of your indestructible nature. You have emerged as the absolute, undisputed sovereign of your reality, holding the infinite power of creation in your peaceful hands. If you have walked this entire journey with me to the very end, anchor your new timeline right now by typing these exact words below. I am the untouchable sovereign. If this message sparked a profound shift within you and you desire to continue expanding your consciousness, click on one of the videos appearing on your screen right now to walk even deeper with us and unlock exclusive content. Support our journey by clicking the Join button to become a channel member. The storm is over. Step into your magnificent new world